Welcome in, and thanks for joining me again. The other day, I was talking to someone about, some issues arising in their life, things they were going through, and with this particular friend, it seems to be a repeating pattern that they continually strive to, get something, achieve something in their life. Could be a certain relationship, job, I guess like mood or way of being, maybe a spiritual state, something like that. And I've just noticed this pattern again and again in our conversations around how they're relating to when things don't work out, right? When things don't go their way, the relationship fails or that person, doesn't turn out to be who they think they are. Their meditation practice is kind of a little bit stale or feels like it's not as fruitful as it used to be, or they're having a really hard time at work or just, in any of the things in their life. And so, what I was reflecting on was probably some of these things are familiar to you, because I think we all experience a relationship to the different aspects of our life in this way. Even if we don't experience it currently, maybe we have in the past. Or we go in and out of that kind of, guess you could say, reaction to what's happening in our life, and especially more the things that we aren't getting or that we're maybe being disappointed by. And so this particular friend, I could definitely see mirrored in parts of my life from time to time, and I'm sure some of you can also relate. So I was reflecting on this and some possible perspectives from Dharma and the Buddhist path that could help with this. I was specifically reflecting on things that I've activated in my personal practice, which means not just on the cushion, formally in formal meditation. It also means informally throughout the day. So I thought to share some of those that have been really helpful for me, because possibly if you're struggling with this same type of situation, maybe they'll be able to help you. So just first of all, this kind of I guess you could say rut we get into with life, where everything seems to be going wrong, or we're striving for something, we don't get it. And then after some months or years, we start to feel a little bit like a failure, or we start to feel like there's something wrong with us, or that, what did we do wrong? Why are we down on our luck? Right? Something like that. And in my life, again, I'm not going to say, you need to think this way. This is just some ideas that I'm working with personally. I like to think of them as like a working hypothesis, because it doesn't mean it's truth. It just means it's somewhere where I can apply curiosity, some introspection, and look, is there a way to work with this? Is there a way to look at it? I guess with more sobriety, more clarity. And so what I started to think, especially not just about my friend, but about, when I get into these ruts, I was starting to think about it as a type of addiction. Now, I don't mean addiction in the word in the same way as like addiction, a drug addiction, or addiction to substances or something like that. What I mean is more an addiction, or I guess I could say here, a strong expectation and habit pattern that life should work. That the things we do in life should work out. And if they don't work out, we're either doing something wrong or there's something wrong with us, right? Now, I know this is a strong way to put it, so I just want to say, some things in life can work out, and they I don't know if I want to say they should, but it's sort of like, of course, sometimes we just need to put more effort into something, or, take a step back to see where the bottleneck is, to see how to remedy the issue. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. And actually, that's part of perseverance in Buddhism. Often when we hit ruts or stagnation in our meditation practice, or the growth in our personal development as a Buddhist practitioner, we need to take a step back and look, what's going wrong. And sometimes we apply the study of the Dharma to that to assess, are we looking at it in a way that's sort of stagnating us, or is there something we're doing we can switch? So of course, the same thing applies to life and kind of anything around that. But what I really want to discuss here is more this strong expectation that it's not really that nothing should go wrong, because I think most of us would kind of consciously or conceptually say, oh, of course things can go wrong. That's life. But I think it's more the inner unconscious attitude that nothing should go wrong, right? Expecting things to work out all the time. And of course, no matter how hard we try, no matter what we do, sometimes things just don't work out, right? And that's normal and natural. And so the department of Dharma practice, or for me, it's a lot of often like introspection and applying the Buddhist path to this type of dilemma or this type of question, often comes into the category for me of creating a real relationship with life. And so we can apply some of the, I guess we could say, most foundational principles of Buddha Dharma to this to help frame it and understand it. So one of the most useful framings for that Buddhism helps with in relation to life is this framing we call the four seals, and these seals are in common in all of the different types of Buddhism. Sometimes they're called the three characteristics or the three marks, but basically they're the same in Mahayana Buddhism. They just add on a fourth. So these seals are impermanence, dissatisfaction, or the nature of pain or suffering, non-duality or shunyata, and then the fourth is liberation, or nirvana is peace. So we have these four that we not only use as a lens to look at life, but as something to arrange our life around and to work towards. So the first one is really what I wanted to start with here, and that is the mark or the seal of impermanence, or anicca. And so impermanence is something we all acknowledge. I think most of us realize everything's changing all the time, but sometimes there's an unconscious belief that it won't change, or there's an unconscious pattern of trying to hang on to something despite it changing, right? We want it to stay the same. And this is the root of this particular teaching. It's not to force a belief on us. It's more of a question. It's like, is everything in the nature of change? Is everything impermanent? So why this is so important to relating to life or creating a real relationship with life is we need to develop a direct perception of the nature of change or impermanence as much as possible. And this obviously applies on a gross level to physical form changing. It definitely applies to moods and thoughts and emotions, which change much quicker. And then there's subtler levels of change that are happening all the time. Actually, from the time you started listening to this episode till now, a lot's changed. Even if we can't see it, even if we can't consciously say, okay, that changed, right? It changed though, right? Either way. So reflecting on this can be very powerful, because what comes out of a reflection on this is an experiential shift in how we relate to life. I can't say exactly how that shift might play out for you, but for me, often this shift helps in relating more fluidly with life, right? And so if things are always changing, why am I going to fight that? So here kind of comes the next principle around this, which is often we can kind of infer this through reflecting on impermanence, or if it's a natural response to reflecting on impermanence and change over a period of time, that's even better. So this response is fluidity, right? Well, we recognize fluidity, but the response is acceptance. The response is an acceptance of how things are, right? And it's such a healthy way to relate to life, especially when things don't go our way, especially when we start to develop a little bit of a lack of confidence where we think, everything bad is happening to me. We just have to recognize there's nothing. Sometimes there's nothing we did wrong necessarily, or we can't really discern that clearly in the moment. So we just have to tune into the fluidity and change of life and accept, right? So acceptance is a big one. It's a healthy kind of surrender. It's not an unhealthy one, right? Of course, there's some kinds of acceptance where actually we do need to persevere in something, as I said earlier, and we're not. And that could be something to look at. But either way, I'm talking about like a healthy surrender, a surrender of, okay, there's this is how it is right now, and I have to rest with this. I have to be with this moment. So for me, there's a continual practice of this. I'm not saying I'm good at it, by the way, just saying I try, of leaning into the moment. So meditation, a lot of it is for bringing our attention and awareness into the present moment and learning to be, right? And within that being, we're meeting each moment again and again. And when we're meeting the moment, we're also meeting impermanence. We're meeting change. Actually, technically, there is no specific moment because that moment just changed into the next moment. But anyways, that's getting a little bit further down into the other seals of Dharma. But either way, relating in this way to life, I think not only helps us to be more content when things don't go our way, but also it helps to break up that addiction to forcing things to work. There's so much striving nowadays, and obviously, like I said, if we have a goal in mind and we want to get something done or get a certain position or build our business or build really awesome relationships with our kids or partners, that's all great, right? So we just have to learn to discern what is a healthy way to pursue something and where does it turn into a type of striving that leaves us tired, kind of empty in a negative way, and with a lack of confidence, right? Because we're pushing something too hard, we're pushing it too far. And then, of course, a lot of us have striven for things in our life. Maybe we got them, but they changed. And maybe we were disappointed at some point because we thought, once I get this thing, I'm going to be happy. But actually it changed. So creating a more meaningful relationship to life, and life here, I just mean everything that happens to us, our relationships with others, our relationship with ourselves, our minds, our emotions. Creating a more healthy relationship can really, like I said, start to break up this kind of addiction to striving and pushing. So impermanence is one doorway into that, this nature of change. Dukkha, the next of the four seals, or sometimes we translate dukkha as dissatisfaction, suffering, or uncomfort, discomfort, and again, a lot of people have a hard time with this one because it sounds initially like it's dwelling on things that are painful or uncomfortable, and that's not the point at all. Actually, the point is just to notice the different levels of discomfort that we are experiencing, and how through holding our sense of self, through holding identities in certain ways, we actually reinforce that pain. So it's actually the opposite. It's not about seeing pain to get stuck in it and dwell on it. It's actually about acknowledging and seeing the levels of dukkha in our life so we can wake up from it. That's really the purpose, right? So it's very similar to diagnosing the symptoms of a certain disease properly so we can actually apply medicine to the disease. So in traditional Buddha Dharma, this is how we do it. So this is a little bit more challenging than looking at the nature of change of something or the impermanence, because often when we look at the discomfort or the innate suffering within a certain behavior or a certain experience or situation, it can be heartbreaking, right? And so we have to be really careful here not to deflate. And so usually there's a phrase I apply to this, which is when we bear witness to the different levels of dissatisfaction, discomfort, suffering in our life, we have to let our heart break open, not break down, right? So we want to encourage it to break open, not break down. So breaking open has a lot to do with compassion. It has a lot to do with the softness, the tenderness we can develop through bearing witness to pain in our life, which is inevitable. Every single person on this earth has to experience some level of dissatisfaction and pain, right? So we allow our heart to break open, and this tenderness helps us to relate to life in a much more skillful way, right? And tenderness here doesn't mean there's not confidence in that or an ability to get things done. It just means we do that with deeper humanity, patience, right, and clarity. That's really what those are some of the things that come out of working with dukkha. So from both of these, impermanence and working with the nature of change, basically meeting the nature of change in different situations in our life, meeting the nature of dukkha in these different situations in our life, it can lead to the third seal. And this is probably where some people kind of check out when they read Buddhism, because the third seal is about Buddhist non-duality, otherwise known as shunyata, or sometimes we use the term emptiness. But this is not a negation in a negative way. It's not a nihilism. It's not saying things are meaningless. Actually, it's just saying things are attributed with meaning because they're interdependent. Because they're in relationship, they can take form. They can function. They can have meaning for us and others. But that meaning is very fluid and open, right? Normally, when we attribute meaning, we get attached and we cling to that. And then, of course, things change. And so then we can suffer from that. So this third seal of shunyata, it has this connotation of how things actually are, that they are naturally open. And when we try to constrict them or box them in or make them something they're not, we're denying that openness. And then that's going to inevitably lead to pain and dissatisfaction. So this is a big one. And this is probably the single most liberative meditation perspective, aspect of reality that we can acknowledge and experience on a deeper level that can bring a lot of joy into our life. So rather than a lack, it's actually about bringing a joy and contentment, because we actually start to relate to how things are rather than building them up into something they're not. So over the course of working with these three, the teachings say one could then access the fourth, which is liberation or nirvana. That's actually beyond a piece that we could say is good or bad. It's something that is beyond both, right? And so I'm not going to go too much into this here. I just want to acknowledge that it's there. But if you're like me, I'm mainly working with the first three, right? And I think the first one is the most practical starting place for many of us, because we can all see change around us. I mean, just a famous phrase now is sort of, if you don't like your mood, just wait for it to change. Just like if you don't like the weather, just wait for it to change, right? So we can see the nature of change isn't a bad thing. If there wasn't change, we would always be stuck in the same mood, or we would always be stuck in the same situation. So change isn't always bad. It's just we need to work with our clinging when we don't want things to change. And then change also, when we bear witness to change, it also allows us to bear witness to each and every situation in a fresh way. So that's also what I'm implying here, is developing a new way to work with our life and the situations in our life in a fresh way. It's a little bit about lightness here, right? So we can squeeze something and try to get something out of it, or we can just hold it properly and allow it to have its own trajectory. And we support it, right? And we encourage it, but we're holding it lightly. So that'll be the last thing I'll say, which is, just asking this question to yourself when you're struggling with something in your life. Can I hold it more lightly? We're not letting go of it. It's just, this question: am I doing this with this particular situation or action or person, or am I doing this? And so often this is the first step, just switching from this to this. And yeah, it's not easy. Depending on what we're working with, that can be very difficult, right? So you don't need to take the most difficult thing that you're clinging and squeezing to. Take something a little bit less intense and just start to practice that, right? Then you can start to work with things that are a little more challenging. So that's all I got today. I really appreciate you listening to this or watching this. And if you have any comments, feel free to comment here. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening to the audio of this, feel free to reach out to me on my website at scotttusa.com. And wishing you all the best in your practice. Thanks so much.